Welcome to another episode of Authors Learning Something New. On today's episode, we have Chris O'Brien, author of Meet the Godfreys, and Rick Tabor, your host, author of Children of the Scroll. Welcome to the podcast, Authors Learning Something New. On today's show, we have Chris O'Brien, the author of Meet the Godfreys, and I'm your host, Rick Tabor, author of Children of the Scroll. How's it going today, Chris?
It's going pretty well, Rick. Happy Friday to you.
Now tell me
Uh,
the name of your new baby again.
yeah, so new baby is Addison, and Addison is about 11 weeks old. She's awesome. Um, she's a great sleeper, which is a major surprise.
What? That's
Um,
just not fair.
yeah. So she's a very easy baby. So we've been very lucky. And she smiles a lot, and she's just been it's been great.
Oh, God has blessed you, that's for sure.
That's
Hold up your book and tell me a little bit about it. Let's see the cover.
yes.
It's a cool cover.
So right here we've got Meet the Godfreys. Show the back of it too. Published by Long Overdue. And so Meet the Godfreys is actually the very first novel I've ever written. And I I picked it because we worked closely and talked very closely about your first novel, and I thought this would be a good conversation for us as to talk about our experiences with our first novel, and I thought that that would be a good overlap for our discussion. So yeah, this is the book Meet the Godfreys.
Yeah, so Chris is the publisher of my book, Children of the Scroll, and he was fantastic. I mean, his company, him and his company did a great job. They were so super responsive with everything, and uh, I think I'm not sure, but I think I set records with his company in publishing.
The speed that we got that book out the door was I don't know if it'll ever be topped. No,
I apologize, sort
no,
of,
no, no.
for putting so much pressure on you. I think you were at Disney World, sitting on the toilet with the toilet
Yeah,
closed, editing my book
yeah. I was
to try to get it out the door.
yeah, because if anyone who's traveled with kids, and it was just one kid at the time, and you're in a hotel room, you can't you can't turn on any lights. So you can't open up the laptop in the room. You can't do anything once the light goes on. So I went into the bathroom, closed that door, and then I set up in the bathtub and and was doing some proofreading and editing on the book in the bathtub at Disney World. So uh, some nice early mornings before Magic Kingdom.
And between I think the reason for the speed that you were working at was we were trying to get it out the door before the holidays.
That's right.
And oh, and don't forget, we had a launch scheduled, which I'd already plopped down, some money
Yeah.
for what do they call it? A room basically at a restaurant and
Yeah.
to hold the launch event and everything like that. And so
Yeah.
you were really scrambling, especially for to
Yeah.
meet those deadlines. So, could you tell us a little bit about your background, Chris? Because you've got a lot going on.
Yeah. A lot going on. So I live in Chicago. I've got two kids, and my wife are here. We've been together for 12 or 13 years. And yeah, so 13 years married. We met at Hope College, which is in Holland, Michigan. And at Hope, I was a creative writing major. So I always knew that writing is what I wanted to do. And writing has always been going on for me.
Well, tell the people that are watching this what your book is about.
Fair question. So the book started with this idea and men will be more familiar with this than women, but in the men's public restroom, there are things called a urinal. And for whatever reason, I looked at this kind of pink hockey puck that's in the urinal, which is it's the deodorizer. It kind of gets rid of the smell. And I had this thought of like, who invented that? What's the like who is the guy that invented the urinal cake? It's called a urinal cake for men's public restrooms. And what's that story to say, okay, what if there's this family business that all ties back to that invention, and they're this big bathroom company, kind of like the Clorox or the scrubbing bubbles, but a smaller bathroom company. And what if we take the story to the third generation of that family who are in high school, which I was around high school age at the time, and they're they're the heirs to the throne. And so that was the origin of the story. And then it kind of follows two cousins that are in that family.
So the chemist in me comes out a little bit and says, aren't those hockey pucks, or maybe they used to be made of paradichlorobenzene as one, or maybe it's naphthalene. I'm not sure which, but
I think it's impressive that you just had that off the top of your head.
that's
That
just
that is the chemist in you. Well, and how we were introduced too was through a mutual connection that worked at Dow. And
absolutely right.
in the writing process, that's what's so fun about writing is you start with this idea and then you say, all right, well, where are we going to set it? And I had gotten a lot of advice that, write what you know. That's the big advice. And so I was like, let's just set it in my hometown of Midland. And once that choice was made, then then you say, well, Midland, what is Midland known for? Dow Chemical. So I have this little scene of when they're telling the family history. Herbert H. Dow was an
Oh,
early,
wow.
like so I had fun with that of
Now that I know your book has got some chemistry in it, I'm going to have to read it.
yeah, that's the yep. Uh,
Now, would you consider it a humorous book, a drama? Yeah.
yeah,
I know you like to write humor, so I'm guessing humor.
very much a humorous book.
Nice. All right. Well, it's time for the special question of the podcast. How important is the plot to writing a book, in your opinion?
hmm So this this has really changed for me, um, because at first I thought, as crazy as it sounds, that idea of the urinal cake and that backstory, I thought that's what made the story exciting, is because it felt like this was an original idea, and I can't remember anything that was talking about this bathroom empire concept. And so at the beginning, it was very plot driven. Was okay, what's their invention going to be? And then how are they going to sell that new product for their company? And then what's going to happen? And what's so that was always what was driving it at the beginning. But when the book really took off was a third character that's not tied to the family, it's their friend. And I had this thought, well, what if he is marrying the high school sweetheart of that friend? And that the book really took off once I had that conflict, but the characters and their relationships are kind of what drives the book forward. I don't know if you felt the same, Rick, with yours with Children of the Scroll.
So I love Stephen King's style of writing, and usually I've read a lot of his books. And he wrote a book called On Writing. And the way he writes a book is he starts with a question, basically, is what if, And then with that question, he sort of said, okay, this could happen, this could happen. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But the very next step is he creates a set of characters that you get attached to. And then he throws them in the middle of this what if scenario. And then the two together, between the characters and the what if scenario, drive the plot to the end, which he doesn't even, he says it's himself, I don't even know what the end of the story is going to be. It's all about what the characters being true to themselves
Yep.
from the beginning all the way to the end. What they, if I keep them true to themselves, they make decisions that will
Yep.
drive the plot forward to a logical conclusion.
One question that is front and center for authors, but any industry right now is the AI question. So I was wondering for you, where do you see AI progressing in writing and publishing over the next
Well,
few
Chris,
years
right
or months?
at this very moment, you're talking to an AI person and a voice. I'm not even here. Rick is
Yeah.
somewhere else doing some work of some sort. He's out in the yard relaxing. I'm just
Rick,
kidding.
Rick, knock twice. Knock twice if you can hear us.
No,
Godfrey.
but that's how bad it's getting. I mean, in my opinion, personally, the world was created for humans, which people used to do. They're making audio. They're speaking almost indistinguishably, almost from people. They're writing programs, doing software. They're displacing us in many, many jobs. Um, the human part of me doesn't like that at all. So for that reason, I hope we come up with some regulations that stop them from getting too far out of control. So, Chris, if you were asked to compare your book with a book or a movie that we might already be familiar with, what would it be and why?
Yeah, good question. So super bad comes to mind for sure. And just the time frame, one of the characters, especially at that time, could have could have been played by Jonah Hill very easily.
Nice. Yeah.
So you can see some of that Jonah Hill humor in one of the characters. I've also described it as Casablanca meets Saved by the Bell. So so Casablanca, you've got the love triangle between those three characters, and that who's she gonna pick? Who will she pick? The Humphrey Bogart or the war hero? And so there's that, but drop that into a high school Saved by the Bell environment. My picks for that. And how about you on Children of the Scroll?
I would say Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, combined with maybe Dan Brown's um, Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code. Yeah.
Yeah, throw those in a blender, turn that on with some Rick Tabor modifications, and
Yeah.
uh, you end up with a little bit of a action-packed story with a lot of mystery involved in from beginning to end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is the most important thing you've learned as an author during your journey so far that would help other authors?
This one could be encouraging or discouraging, depending
Well,
depending
we're here
on
for learnings, both good
yeah.
and bad. Yeah, what to do, what not to do.
So one of the things that I've realized with this book is your book is never really done. So and I'll try to explain that a little. So started writing it in 2009. I think I finally published it. So this was the first version of it was so I self-published it back in maybe 2017 and learned a lot in that process. Fast forward a few years and I always wanted to move it over to Long Overdue. So once I had started that publishing house, in the back of my mind was let's move Meet the Godfreys over. And the time just kept going, and before you know it, it was 4 or 5 years, and I'd still had that idea on the back burner. And when I finally went to the book, not only did I went to some of the earlier designs from the artist. So this is the new one. I said, I kind of like that orange one that he did, and the blue spine, and I like that one. And so I made the change to the cover. And then you start wrestling with, well, how much can you change? Because you
Yeah,
don't you
without
don't want to
changing the
change.
ISBN number, right? We had that
Right,
problem too.
right. And I think I did. I ended up with a new ISBN for this because new cover
Ah,
and new enough new content in the
sure.
book. So I think it can be discouraging because it's like, man, when do I know that it's done? And am I going to look back in 2 years and still find things that I would change? I think it can be freeing to say, all right, I know that there's always changes I could make. So let's pick a date. Let's publish this book and then kind of move on.
Well, we're sort of coming to the end of our time, Chris, and this is the time where I ask you, do you have a website? And are you located on social media? Where can people find you?
Yep. So website is Long Overdue Books. So longoverduebooks.com. You can see the Meet the Godfreys on there. There's also a sequel to it.
Really? Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Called Tour de Bathroom. And and then my other book Here or There is on there, as well as Rick's book. So Rick's book, Children of the Scroll, as well as about 30 books now that are on that site. So you can go and check them out and um, read,
Congratulations.
yeah, read sections of them. And then on Instagram, it's Long Overdue Books as well.
So cheering you on at long overdue books. And all
Yeah,
right, there you
good.
go, readers uh, and fellow authors. Here are the two books you need to read next.
There you go.
And thank you for watching another episode of Authors Learning Something New. If you're watching this podcast on my YouTube account, please press the subscribe button, and you'll get more of these automatically. So, thanks for
Awesome.
joining us, readers and authors. We'll
Yeah.
see you next time.